Good morning, friends. It is Tuesday, March 8th, and it is International Women's Day. We welcome you to a special edition of Real Talk. Ryan Jesperson here with you alongside John Hicks in studio. Sarah Hoyles working from her home studio. We've got a great show in store, including some movers and shakers in different areas. We're going to get into a roundtable in about half an hour from now, maybe 35 minutes from now. What defines womanhood? And Sarah's put together a great panel. Looking forward to that. And in just a moment, Isabella Sheftlia from Wilfrid Laurier University. She's the author of Women as War Criminals. We're going to take a look at women and war, obviously a timely focus on this edition, the 2022 edition of International Women's Day, plus your comments on our live chat, and we'll be keeping an eye on our hashtag RealTalkRJ as well. This show is proudly presented by our friends at Bitcoin Well. They're Canada's first, as far as they know, the first on planet Earth publicly traded Bitcoin ATM company. You can learn more about them online. You can check out their website by linking to it through ours. You may be of the inclination that cryptocurrency is not really for you. It's not on your radar, and that's fine, but it is becoming more and more of a part of the conversation around finances and global commerce and privacy and financial sovereignty. Interesting stuff. If you ever do have a question, they've got a team of experts ready to help out. You'll find them under the sponsors tab right at the top at ryanjesperson.com.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
As mentioned, International Women's Day. Sarah Hoyles, the editorial producer of this show, has put together a great one, and we're looking forward to it. The roundtable today, Marnie Panis, a transgender advocate, Christina Belding, a so-called flat closure advocate. She's a breast cancer survivor. She's, quote, living flat. I'm really looking forward to picking her brain on that. And Melanie Notkin, who's the celebrated author of Savvy Auntie. This conversation coming up, as mentioned, in about a half an hour's time. Sarah Hoyles working from her home studio this morning. It feels strange. On one hand, you say, yes, happy International Women's Day. We recognize it. We celebrate it. People will be celebrating the women in their lives today. And other people will see today as a day of protest or a day of activism. For some people, they'll say, I'm not celebrating today. I'm demanding change today. How do you approach International Women's Day?
Yeah, it always feels a little bit weird when someone's like, Happy International Women's Day. I'm like, thank you. But I think it's important that we recognize the contributions, celebrate women, but also acknowledge that we have a hell of a long way to go for equity and equality, whether it's pay, opportunities, the gender roles, all that jazz.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to speaking with our expert, Isabella Sheftlia, coming up in just a few minutes, because we'll talk about, when we talk about women in war, there are so many different angles to pursue here, right? We can take a look back to World War II, and you take a look at the efforts on the home front, so to speak, the manufacturing of munitions, and they talk about the role that women played traditionally, 80 years ago as part of that war effort. You take a look present day at for example, the refugee situation in Ukraine. Disproportionately, it's women and children leaving, but many women staying behind as well. And then, of course, the feature of her book, Women as War Criminals. It's exactly what it sounds like. Women participating in war crime. So I can't wait to pick her brain on that and ask her what led her research or her studies to that point, but a fascinating one. Did you use today as an opportunity to basically hear from a whole bunch of people that you have found fascinating for quite some time?
You betcha. Yeah, I've been wanting to speak with Marnie forever. And so I was like, this is a great opportunity. So yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's interesting to think about women when it comes to war times, because looking at Ukraine right now, we're at 2 million people that have fled Ukraine. We know that it's mandated that men 18 to 60 need to stay and serve. Some women are staying, but many are fleeing. There's also reports of war crimes around rape. So women have been used as pawns, really, to break a people, to humiliate them, to break their spirit, and rape is used in that way. So, yeah, women women really endure a lot when it comes to war.
Okay, well, we'll get into this conversation in just a few moments. Of course, you're also keeping an eye on other stories as they develop. Do we call it on the home front? It's certainly in our neck of the woods in the province of Alberta. Everybody's talking yesterday about Jason Kenney's block party. I did not come up with the phrase. I don't think you came up with the phrase, but I thought it was pretty awesome. A whole bunch of people found that they were so-called auto-blocked by Alberta's premier. I've never even heard of this before, but this is a new feature with Twitter. This is like you can declare yourself. What is it? It's like a safety feature.
Yeah, it's a safety mode is what it is. So the actual user, the account has to set safety mode.
Okay. So the user of the account has to switch their account into safety mode. This is what, if they're being piled on online, they've tweeted something and all of a sudden everybody's coming at them. You can it's like putting on your flak jacket. You can click yourself into safety mode and it starts auto blocking people.
That is precisely it. I'd like to auto block Ranger right now.
Yeah, your pup. It's okay. It's okay. It's no offense, but we might mute you just for now because obviously we've got some enthusiastic pups. This is a very dog-friendly broadcast. We're not worried about it, Hoyles. We're not going to lose any sleep over it. But yeah, this is kind of the auto block story is one that I find interesting because people are saying the Premier's office, the official line on this is, we don't know what happened. We didn't do anything. We didn't touch anything. We didn't intentionally put it into safety mode. We're not sure what's going on. We've inquired with Twitter, and everybody else is going, well, Twitter pretty much says the company line is that you got to manually switch it into safety mode yourself, so what gives? I don't know that anybody believes that the Premier's office is telling the truth at any point. I think that we've done our best to remind people that Jason Kenney fucking lies all the time, and that would include his team, and so I don't know about this. But at the same time, can I say that I'm pleasantly surprised I was not auto-blocked. It was the first thing I checked.
Check?
I went and checked right away, and I am not auto-blocked. I am still one of the 305,000 people that can follow along with what the Premier and his team put out every day. So there you go. And that includes that they're going to suspend Alberta's gas tax. This is about, 13 cents a liter? This goes into effect the 1st of April. So in a few weeks from now, the Premier's office is essentially saying this is an effort that they're going to make to help people manage what is a skyrocketing cost of fuel.
That's precisely it. Yeah. So they're saying that it will stay up or stay down, I guess I should say. That the tax is not going to be implemented unless the barrel of gas goes below $80 US.
Okay.
So it's once it's taken off, it will be put back on until it hits that benchmark, according to Jason Kenney.
Okay. You got to assume that some people will be happy about this. This is going to keep some money in their jeans. If your vehicle takes 50 or 100 liters of gas, it'd be a bit of a savings. Other people will say, what's that going to do to provincial coffers? Which is probably a fair question. Can Alberta afford to do this? It's always funny to see politicians try to balance taking credit for the high price of oil and getting rid of all responsibility for the high price of gas at the same time. I'm responsible for the high price of oil, but not for the high price of gas.
Yeah, it's kind of like I want the best of both worlds. I want my cake. I want to eat it too.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's pennies. And let me
no. It's 13 cents it's 13 cents a liter.
Right.
The truck I'm driving now, I think, takes 140 liters or something like that. This is like $20, isn't it?
Yeah,
Am I missing? Yeah, 10 liters, $1.30, right? 100 liters, $13. Yeah, that's not pennies.
Yeah.
That's a couple pints, Hoyles. That's a couple pints.
These are things that I don't really think about because I have an electric car. So.
Yes, as you continue to remind us, and not just that, but an electric luxury car she drives.
Oh, get out of town.
You can't stand it. That's what it is. What it is, Hoyles. It's fine. Hey, audience members, I love this stuff. We talk about this as a community of sorts. Folks like Walter and Debbie are chiming in, letting us know that as soon as Ranger starts barking, all their dogs start barking too, which is awesome. We got all the pups hanging out together and sharing in this community. Coming up in just a second, we're going to take a look at women and war as Real Talk recognizes International Women's Day today. First, I want to tell you about our friends at Friesen Brothers. 16 locations across the province of Alberta. And of course, in just about a week or so, 9 days from now, it's St. Paddy's Day. You don't want to miss out on their St. Paddy's Day dinner. You can check out all the details online at friesen.com. A special all-you-can-eat dinner. This is coming up on March 12th. Leading up to St. Paddy's Day, March 12th at Friesen.com from 4 to 8 p.m. at all Friesen Brothers Fresh Market stores. Again, you can find out all the information on their website. And don't miss their annual meat sale It's back with 20% off in the Butcher Shop on St. Patrick's Day only. Of course, that's coming up on March 17th. And also just a quick heads up, this month's Mike Meals is the Hot Hen Sandwich and Pizza. It's Alberta chicken treated with Frank's hot sauce and a drizzle of honey. Hot diggity. More details at friesen.com.
Sounds delicious.
Doesn't it sound good? Somebody was giving me hell yesterday saying you introduce your new vegan technical producer and within 5 minutes you have him talking about sawing meat off a tenderloin in Paraguay. It was unintentional, John.
Hey, whatever floats everyone's boat.
I didn't mean to get you talking meat right away. There was no disrespect intended. I'm still going to roll on this because I want to tell our friends about the 2022 Jeep Wagoneer. A lot of people were looking forward to this one coming out. This is Jeep's re-entry into the luxury full-size class. The Wagoneer is turning heads in that top market where everybody's looking at Escalades and Navigators. You got to consider the Wagoneer if you're in the market, and you'll find the best selection of all Jeeps, both new and, of course, their pre-owned selection, too, at Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. You can link to them under the Sponsors tab on our website. If you're heading out of town, if you're lucky enough to be feeling the sand in your toes, you're just waiting, you're getting set to leave, you got your passports, you got your cash, you're ready to head out of town, don't forget to book in your airport parking today at jetsetparking.com. If you use the promo code REALTALK, you'll be able to park for just $7 a day at Edmonton International Airport at JetSet Airport Parking. That's right, $7 a day. Doesn't get better than that. It's the best deal you're going to find down there. We wish you a safe journey. And of course, make sure that you do that at least 24 hours in advance. You can book all the way through till travel to the end of 2022. The Real Talk promo code at jetsetparking.com. Well, it is International Women's Day today, and we wanted to find interesting angles and, of course, whenever possible, angles that touch on current events as we recognize many different contributions, involvements, etc., of women around the world. Dr. Isabella Steflia is an assistant professor of political science at Wilfrid Laurier University. She's done extensive fieldwork in post-conflict nations like Bosnia and Kenya, Serbia, Rwanda. She's the author of Women as War Criminals, Gender, Agency, and Justice. A pleasure, Doctor, to welcome you to Real Talk. Thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Before we get
very important day.
Yeah, certainly. I was chatting with my producer out of the gates today, and I was asking her, picking her brain a little bit. I said, do you say Happy International Women's Day, or what's your perspective on today, March 8th?
I mean, today's a very complicated International Women's Day, I think. So, I'm going to refrain from saying Happy International Women's Day. I think there are too many images in media of women going through a lot of suffering currently. So I'm not going to use the word happy, but definitely there's a lot to discuss today.
Yeah, we want to talk to you about women and war. And of course, you've literally written a book on it. And I guess we could say, well, what period of time do we want to talk about? Which war do we want to talk about? What part of the world do we want to talk about? Maybe what side of the war are we talking about? But as you, along with the rest of the people on planet Earth, observe what's happening in Ukraine, an estimated 2 million refugees right now, in the context of International Women's Day, what are you focusing on?
Yeah, so I think, I want to acknowledge from the beginning that women are more likely to be victims of wartime violence, right? So while I wrote a book on violent women who are war criminals, today I want to start by acknowledging that in general, when we look at different contexts across cases and across time, women are more likely to be victims of wartime violence, and they do commit crimes at lower rates than men do, violent crimes at lower rates than men do. And they do constitute a minority of those accused of war crimes, right? So I kind of want to make that clear from the beginning. But that doesn't mean that women do not participate in wartime violence in very important ways as well. They do play a role in warfare.
We were having this conversation as a team off air, and how interesting it is that as Ukraine is being attacked by Russia, this mandate comes down that males in Ukraine, essentially from 18 to 60 years of age, although that we're seeing flex on both sides of that age parameter, required to stay behind and fight while women and children flee. Part of that may be explainable under certain, I don't know if you want to call them gender norms or what have you, but also part of it feels a little bit old school. Now, that's not to say that many women are not voluntarily insisting that they stay behind as well and participate in the defense of their country. But how do you wrap your mind around that women that women and children leave?
Well, I think that, you sort of, by emphasizing women who voluntarily stay, right? That's kind of key in understanding the situation here. Women who voluntarily stay to fight, right? And so they're not made to do that. And that just tells you about the will of these women, right? And so we don't actually have much information about how many of these men want to stay or don't want to stay because they're expected to. It's mandatory. But as we have seen reports of women fleeing with children, as you say, so sort of women are, their contribution to the home front is emphasized. Home front being either as parents, so taking the children, evacuating with the children and taking care of them during war. Or we also saw images of women sort of preparing food. For example, there were a bunch of pictures going around of Ukrainian women in a Ukrainian church making, Ukrainian style pierogies for the defense forces, right? So those are emphasized. Yet at the same time, I have to say, we can't ignore, the sort of reports of women who are teachers who have chosen to join the territorial defense forces, the voluntary forces, and fight, or business women being interviewed who have chosen to stay and fight, right? So I think that just tells us a lot. And, maybe differently from other wars that I've studied, this is visible right away. We sort of don't have to be, because of social media, that has sort of changed, because now we don't have to wait for me to write a book about the women who participated in the conflict in Rwanda or in the conflict in Bosnia. We are seeing it as it happens. So, I have to sort of say that the social media has played a role in illustrating the variety of roles that women play during wartime, and complexifying this idea that as a society we used to have that women are the home front and men are the battlefront, and this dichotomy that as societies we've established. We like to feminize that home front and masculinize the front lines. But Ukrainian women are challenging that already. We can see it.
As you've studied the role that women have played in conflicts in different parts of the world, do you have to evaluate? I mean, do you see common themes throughout, or do you have to evaluate each one based on the time period, geography, et cetera? In other words, was the role that women played or what you took from it different, for example, in Bosnia than Rwanda?
Yes, it is different, and it's very important to look at each context and each conflict, right? So there are very important differences. But one commonality, before I go into the differences, one commonality that I want to establish is that women's participation in wartime violence has been underestimated. So we have overlooked it in general. We have reported less on it than men's. And I think that's because we're afraid that if we portray women as violent, that somehow this is going to take attention away from those women who are victims of war. And I don't think that's the case. I think that we are able to see women as complex wartime actors who can be victims, but also who can be perpetrators of violence, right? So, what we usually find is that it's often difficult for women to participate in wartime or in violent activities during, let's say, more regular times. So crisis moments and moments like this in Ukraine is when women are able to break those structural barriers that usually exist when they want to join, let's say, regular state militaries. When they want to join regular state militaries, often they are pushed towards administrative positions. If they're allowed to in the first place. Sometimes they're not allowed to join. Other times they're just pressured towards the administrative positions, and they're told to do this for their own protection, right? So not to join combat roles for their own protection. But We see them very active in revolutionary forces or in voluntary defense forces when these structural obstacles that normally they face are sort of removed in these extraordinary situations.
That's such an interesting point, because we can't absolve ourselves of any responsibility to do better in Canada, can we? I mean, Canada's relatively new defense minister, Anita Anand, recognizing in our conversation with her early on that one of her biggest jobs is to change the culture of the Canadian forces, which has been plagued with sexual misconduct, allegations of sexual assault. That entire culture has been, in my word, relatively poisonous, I think, for women that have endeavored to have a career in the Canadian forces. We're not innocent here.
Oh, definitely. It's an absolutely difficult career to choose, right? But when women are willing to do that, despite those obstacles, I feel like, as a society, we should try and support them to succeed in those roles if that's what they're willing to do, right? Despite the obstacles. So there's definitely a long way to go before women in combat roles becomes a normal thing, an ordinary thing in armies. But I think we have to emphasize that, like in the current situation, we have seen that in the past, taking up arms to defend what you see to be your homeland. And despite what side you're on, taking up arms, we've seen women in the Ukrainian conflict in 2014 on both sides take up arms. So those militias who were supporting the Ukrainian nationalist side and those who were supporting the separatists in the two separatist regions, right? So this is not new. Like I said, maybe what's new is that social media is highlighting it in real time. And women join for a variety of reasons, and the ones that have been overlooked are usually those that focus on their own political, ideological commitments, like nationalism. We tend to emphasize women becoming violent because they want to defend their family, right? Or often media outlets will say that a woman joined a conflict because of a man. So her choices are often linked to men. We saw that in the case of the women who joined the Islamic State. Many of them were referred to as jihadi brides. The suggestion there is that they joined a violent group in order to find a husband,
right? Not
that they joined it because they have their own political, ideological commitments, in that case to the caliphate, right? So these are things that we really need to work on, in Canada and internationally, sort of taking women's political commitments seriously. And not downplaying them and not emphasizing their connections to family or their connection to men, but their own choices.
I've not seen this interview, but Kimberly is watching us live on YouTube right now. She says a female parliamentarian in Ukraine who stayed to fight was interviewed and said, quote, "They thought we were going to throw our arms around them. The only thing we are throwing is Molotov cocktails." Which sounds to me like to be a pretty fitting comment for exactly what you're describing. We're talking to Dr. Isabella Steflia from Wilfrid Laurier University, author of Women as War Criminals, Gender, Agency, and Justice. What prompted you, aside from curiosity, what a fascinating subject, what prompted you to write a book on women as war criminals?
Yeah, so... Well, I work actually also on local perception of international criminal tribunals. And I was working on the tribunal for former Yugoslavia, and I was doing fieldwork in Bosnia and Serbia, asking locals what they think about the tribunal. And, in doing this research, I came across a lot of extremely nationalist women. Who to me were as committed to the violent part of the war in former Yugoslavia as the men were. And so I started looking into this subject more. I myself am a refugee of the Yugoslav Civil War. So as a woman from former Yugoslavia, I would be interested in this, of course, because, I'm aware of all the victims from the Yugoslav Civil War, but I was also interested in women who decided to take action. So I started studying the case of Biljana Plavšić, who is a former Bosnian president. And her case at the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, she was the only woman indicted by that tribunal. And I found such interesting disparities between her case and how she behaved at the tribunal and the men who were tried at the tribunal. So in her case was highly gendered. So she used the gendered defense, right? So she blamed the men that she was working with. So her co-president, Radovan Karadzic, for example, and Ratko Mladic, another war criminal who led the military at the time, she blamed these individuals for the crimes. And she sort of said that she didn't have access to power, even though she was the co-president alongside Radovan Karadzic. So, you know, the disparity in the sentence that she received versus the other president, Karadzic, was immense. She got 11 years and only served 2/3 of it, whereas Radovan Karadzic got a 40-year sentence, and then that was increased to life. Even though they held the same political position. So this to me was extremely fascinating, how did this woman who had such a high political position manage to do this? So I started looking into more cases. And then of course there was, you know, a case in Rwanda, the first woman to be found guilty of genocide and rape as a crime against humanity, a woman. That was the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. So I write about her in the book as well. So, you know, and these are high profile cases. In addition to these two very powerful women, there were many others who were boots on the ground, who also participated in crimes. So there's a lot out there that we have failed to pay attention to, which I think is really important for the project of justice for atrocity in general.
Yeah, I was reading a bit about your book and some of the reviews and what other people had to say about it, and sort of the note that the bias that was shown around the sort of this, as you're describing it, this misconception or this preconceived notion of women as like innocent and what have you, actually stands in the way of post-conflict justice. What would you say was the most interesting bit of feedback, or what was some feedback or an interaction that you had with somebody that read your book that really resonated with you? What was one that was? Is there one that comes to mind right away where your book really made an impact on somebody that in turn made you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people feared the book a little bit because it sort of, and, you know, they wonder, so is this a feminist book? We're saying that all these women did all these bad things, but we have been trying to get women included in peace building processes more, right? So now if I'm arguing that women are capable of being as violent as men, is that somehow going to really diminish this larger project of including women in post-conflict peace processes, of giving them a voice, right? Because somehow they're not naturally better than men, right? And that's come up quite a few times. And I think it's an important and interesting concern, but that it's more important to acknowledge that women are capable of everything that men are capable of.
And this is what is fascinating me about this conversation, because I see anecdotally, I'm sure you see it too, and I sort of chuckle, I guess, in a way, because I know that people mean it cynically to be a bit of humor, but it's certainly dark humor. Anytime that conflict breaks out or there's aggression between nations or what have you, people will say, like, this is why women need to run the world, right? Because this is what happens when the men are in charge. They're going to detonate nuclear bombs and have, you know, I'm trying not to be crude here, but, like, you know, pissing contests, basically, right? And if more women were in charge, this wouldn't happen. But your writing and your assertion is essentially saying that that's BS in a way, really, right?
Yes, it's saying that we have constructed women, we have taught them to be more peaceful.
Right.
We've tried that, and sure, there is some of that, right? A woman may question herself more before becoming violent than a man, because she has been taught to do so by her family, by her community, by society, because she has been told that she's supposed to be more peaceful. But when given the opportunity and when found themselves in those situations, right, such as a war, I'm not sure that that's true. I'm not sure that they would act more peacefully. And I think that we should be concerned about statements like that.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm really grateful that you were able to find time in your day to talk to us this morning, Doctor. We really appreciate your perspective. If you're listening live on the Mixlr audio app, you're listening to the podcast. This is Dr. Isabella Steflia. Her book, Women as War Criminals, Gender Agency and Justice. Thanks so much for this.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, me as
well.
Thank
you for covering this.
Of course. Appreciate it. And shout out, of course, to Sarah Hoyles, who booked that interview. Beautifully done. We've got a roundtable coming up. We're going to take a look at what defines womanhood on this 2022 edition of International Women's Day. That in just a few moments. Plus, we're going to get to some of your emails today, unrelated to International Women's Day. Although, as the show goes, every once in a while, we'll find these common threads and themes. Maybe one will emerge. We'll have to see. Right now, I want to reach out. If you have right now a dream to build an innovative product, or maybe you think that there's a world problem that you might have the solution to, or you'd like to contribute to that solution. Maybe you want to lead change or grow community or transform business. If this is catching your attention, then Nate's J.R. Shaw School of Business could very well be your answer. It's one of Canada's leading polytechnic business educators. They'll help you harness your inner talent, build your skills, feed your curiosity, and then graduate with the in-demand skills that future employers are looking for. You can become an expert in leadership, learn from instructors with years of industry experience, connect to industry. That's one of Nate's greatest competitive advantages. And then, of course, gain experience, earn money, and test drive your career with Nate's BBA Co-op. You can find all of the details online at nate.ca. You're looking for the J.R. Shaw School of Business at Nate. Also want to remind you about Infinity Healthcare. They're all about relationships. Is your family taking a look at home care right now or trying to find a solution for a loved one? Infinity is bringing back customer service to healthcare. Maybe you're looking for somebody to ensure that your mom or dad is getting their medication. Maybe they just need companionship, someone to go play chess with dad for a couple of hours, or to make sure that the house is tidied up, or they're getting to their appointments on time. Infinity Healthcare finds a solution that's right for your family with their unprecedented personality matching. You can learn more about what they're doing. You can visit them online at infinity-8.ca. Well, today, this is the very first Tuesday. We're really excited about that, where we're going to be partnering up with Leading Edge Physiotherapy, who presents The Leading Edge. This is a focus on a person, an organization, a group, an NGO maybe, that's impacting positive change in their community. And today, we're focusing on Zebra Child Protection Center. It's the first center of its kind in Canada. You know, in the wild, if there's a threat, the adult zebras encircle the young and vulnerable to camouflage and protect them. And that's kind of what happens at the Zebra Center. In the tragic circumstance when a child or young person experiences abuse, the good news is a multidisciplinary team of caring adults, including police, children's services, Alberta Justice, Alberta Health, Zebra staff, and volunteers work together to ensure that that child is heard, helped, and supported through healing. You know, there are now more than 30 child advocacy centers across Canada. Zebra Child Protection Center was the first of its kind. And in 2022, they marked their 20th anniversary. Last year alone, the Zebra Center helped more than 3,000 children in just the Edmonton area alone, including through their very important PAWS program. They've got 4 facility dogs who provide support and comfort almost 300 times in 2020 alone, including during the children's interview process and when they're testifying in court. Leading Edge Physiotherapy is proud to support Zebra Child Protection Center. They are on the leading edge. You can find more about Leading Edge Physiotherapy online at leadingedgephysio.com. Leading Edge. Life shouldn't hurt. In just a moment, we're going to take a look at our Real Talk Roundtable. We're going to focus on what defines womanhood. That's coming up in just 2 minutes. We promised you that through this week, we'd be getting to more and more of your emails, many of you in touch throughout the week to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Oftentimes days or even weeks after an interview will air. You catch it, you think about it, you digest it in a way, and then you let us know what you think. That's the case with Lisa, who reached out to me following my interview with activist Bashir Mohammed and first-term Edmonton City Councillor Michael Jans. Both of them claim that they've seen proof that they're on a list of known critics of the Edmonton Police. Now, the EPS and the Edmonton Police Association, the union, we've reached out to both requesting an interview. They insist, Edmonton Police do, that there is no list. If you missed the conversation, I encourage you to check it out from just a few days ago. Lisa said, well, I do agree that policing as a whole needs to be challenged in order to get better. I do feel that the city councillor, Jans, based on the tone of his questions, his attitudes through that interview, approaches the police from a position of distrust and disrespect. If the councillor is willing to learn about policing from experts, there are many within the police service and other agencies that have been recognized internationally for excellence in policing. They're certainly not perfect, but they do go to work every day to try and make their city and profession better. Lisa says there's a lot of misinformation out there, and sadly, a lot of people who maybe aren't as willing to listen or believe as you'd hope. They get caught up in that misinformation. Root causes of crime are acknowledged within the police service, but require holistic approaches to be effective. I was struck, says Lisa, in particular, by a comment from Mr. Mohammed when he said that calls for service that used to have 2 officers responding now have a tactical response. She says, I'm not sure, but I would expect that the prevalence of guns and intelligence when it comes to crime plays a large part in this change, provided that it's real and not just perception. Lisa says, my daughter at supper this evening commented on how many people experiencing homelessness and people experiencing mental illness are being housed or finding housing right now in transit stations or on city buses or in pedways, the plus 15s as they call them in Calgary. Lisa says, as well as criminal elements, that's a concern to people who use transit. She says, now, again, this may be a perception, but this is an example. Based on what police are telling us, it is a problem. When more eyes are on the system as people return to work, this may decrease, but it's a story I'm keeping an eye on. Lisa says, I sure do hope that Edmonton Police respond to your request for an interview on Real Talk. Lisa, thanks for taking the time to share with us. If you'd like to respond to an email that you've heard on here, the door to our inbox is always open. We want to hear from you. Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation. This is one where we'll have a general theme. What defines womanhood? But the 3 women that are joining us certainly have different perspectives and different life experiences. Marnie Panis leads the diversity and inclusion team with one of Canada's largest employers and healthcare services providers. She holds a degree in health administration and a Canadian Certified Inclusion Professional designation. We're going to learn more about that. Marnie's the chair of the board of the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion. Christina Belding is a breast cancer survivor and a flat closure advocate. She's joining us this morning from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, where she is embracing and celebrating life after a double mastectomy. She's, quote, living flat, and we're going to learn more about that. And Melanie Notkin is a leading expert on the emerging demographic of childless, often single women. She's the founder of the organization, the subsequent book, Savvy Auntie. It's a celebration of modern aunthood. To the 3 of you, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for making time for us. Marnie, I should disclose that you and I have been friends for at least a decade, and unless I'm forgetting, I'm pretty sure that today is your Real Talk debut, which means we've got debuts across the board. I'm thrilled to have the 3 of you here. Marnie, what does International Women's Day mean to you?
Well, it's being surrounded by women that are right here, that are uplifting each other, supporting each other, recognizing the many barriers that we all experience, and working together to remove those barriers and really shine a light on the amazing women like that are on this panel with me today. And I'm actually quite humbled to join them.
Okay, well, I want to encourage the three of you to interact, interrupt me, talk over me. Let's have some fun. Don't pull any punches. Say what you mean what you say. Christina, what does International Women's Day mean to you today?
It's a time to celebrate the foundation of the world, really, because women are what makes everything happen.
Yeah, well said. That was in one sentence. I think you summarized the entire reason why this is such an important conversation. We're going to circle back. I want to talk to you about your cancer journey and your observations and what you've learned through that along the way. Before we do, Melanie, welcome to the show. I know a lot of people are going to be excited that the creator of Savvy Auntie is here with us. What does International Women's Day mean to you specifically?
Well, I love the fact that there's a day for women, truly. And I also want to give a shout out to all the men who support women so that they can reach their potential. I don't want to forget about the men who do support women, because there are plenty of them out there. So shout out to those guys, because we often talk about the guys who impede women from getting where they want to be. So here's a shout out to the guys who actually help us get to where we want to be.
There you go. Marnie, I'm not going to ignore a pretty remarkable comment here. This just popped up in our live chat. I'm not sure if folks would have had the opportunity to check out your TED Talk. And if they haven't, that's something that certainly people want to track down. You've delivered that TED Talk, I know, and it's resonated with a lot of people. The Watcher is chiming in on our live chat, says, my hubby came out after listening to Marnie's TED Talk. What does that mean to you?
I did see the comment go by, and when I think about coming out, I think what their hubby did was bring them into a very important part of their life, and I'm quite touched by that, and I just hope that they're doing really well. I think when the best we can do, I know I have a platform as a trans woman. I recognize that I come into this space with a lot of privilege. As a white trans woman gives me a lot of privilege compared to my Indigenous and Black trans women. I know, I'm able-bodied. I look like what society says a woman should look like in a very gender binary world. And so it's an opportunity to use a platform and a stage that hopefully does inspire others to find their courage to be their true self.
Before we go any further, I also want to recognize that Marnie, you do have Ukrainian heritage, obviously, and we see that you're wearing the ribbon. For people that are watching this on YouTube, you have the flag proudly behind you. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to catch our earlier conversation today, but it's not lost on us the role that women are playing in conflict right now in the evacuation of, or the an estimated 2 million people fleeing Ukraine. Is this International Women's Day striking you or hitting you a little bit different this year based on the fact that you and, of course, billions of other people are watching what's happening in Ukraine right now?
Yeah, absolutely. My Ukrainian identity has been a big part of my life as much as my gender has. It's an important part of framing who I am, how I see the world, how the world sees me, my role in it, how I fit in it, how I don't fit in it. All of those things play a role. And who's on top of mind, which we haven't talked about yet, are the trans women in Ukraine. And there is a bit of a double jeopardy here because in Ukraine, in Canada, again, I talk about my privilege, I can change my gender marker on my government ID. Trans women, trans people in Ukraine can't do that. So trying to flee a country, trying to cross borders, apply for refugee immigration status is nearly impossible. And then those same women are often viewed as men and being feared conscripted into fighting in this awful invasion by Russia. And so I think about these trans women right now on this International Women's Day in Canada or in the Ukraine, my sisters there who are truly hiding from everybody. And that's where my heart is right now.
Christina, I'm as much as you're willing to talk about it, I'd love to get into your breast cancer journey. And in particular, when we talk about how to define womanhood, how did your breast cancer journey and your double mastectomy and your decision to live flat, as it's called, how did that impact your understanding or your definition of womanhood?
Well, I mean, the sad thing about breast cancer is it seems more sexualized than it does really to be dealing about cancer. So it's one thing to have a cancer diagnosis, which, you know, anyone can have a cancer diagnosis. But the hard thing about it is all of a sudden that often you have to lose your breast for cancer, and it is what it is. But the fact that people are so strongly committed to telling you how you should feel about your body after having a potentially fatal diagnosis. 1 in 8 women get breast cancer, and 1 in 3 women end up with metastatic cancer, which of course there's no money invested in metastatic cancer these days. So nothing. So it can be a very grim diagnosis. So my point is, the pressure that they try to encourage you that, you know, you'll feel better about your body if you have reconstruction. You know, and so people don't say, hey, are you scared you're going to die because you have cancer? People are like, oh, hey, are you going to have reconstruction? Or, hey, you're going to get new boobs, you know, like, so breasts don't define women. And, you know, that's just, it's a real bone of contention for me. It pisses me off tremendously.
Yeah. I sometimes get into situations where I feel like I'm asking a question that's out of line, but I know you're probably going to tell me to ask it. But why did you decide to not have the reconstruction? Did you know right away? Did you know as soon as you were talking to your surgeon about this double mastectomy, did you know right away you weren't going to have the reconstruction, or did something influence the way that you thought? I mean, what led you to that point to make that decision for yourself?
Oh, I mean, you know, now I just turned 54. My girls had danced on a lot of tables and made a lot of friends over the years. So their time was up, and it was retirement time for them. You know, the thing with breast cancer reconstruction is you lose your nipple, and those are your like party central spots. You have no feeling in your chest. So you really don't get, you get lumps that are cold that are reconstructed on your chest. And I'm not against people who feel that it's something that makes them more comfortable and that they can live in their body. But the surgeries for reconstruction are quite invasive, and there's a lot of secondary health issues that arise with those surgeries and the implants. And I just, it's like, you know, when you have a relationship and someone cheats on you, well, my breasts cheated on me, and that's it. You're gone, you're done. I'm not keeping you around to have you as a reminder that this relationship is over.
Oh, I appreciate that insight. Melanie, I wish that I had the tweet in front of me. I was scrolling earlier today, and I can't even cite the person, and I regret that because they deserve the credit. But I was scrolling through my social media, and I saw somebody today that said basically, you know, please keep your comments about International Women's Day away from childbearing and raising families, and they said basically this sort of obsession or this fixation on women as the child bearers kind of betrays the bigger idea or the bigger premise or the importance of International Women's Day. And I thought it was, unbelievable timing considering the fact that you're joining us to talk about this. Can we talk about your personal journey and then the bigger journey of the community that you have created around the so-called childless demographic? I mean, we're talking about a lot of different people and a lot of different factors at play.
Absolutely. And I love that quote. And it's so true. We seem to have inverted the W for women to M for mother. And today, a woman in the U.S., and I'm not sure, frankly, what the demographic is in Canada, although we tend to parallel both countries in North America. A woman is more likely to have her first child in her 30s than in her 20s. More women are having their first child in their 30s and older. So to decide that all women are mothers when, a couple of decades of their life before motherhood is spent before motherhood. So I have a personal empathy, obviously, for this demographic. Personally, I consider myself what I call circumstantially childless. I always wanted to have children. I'm actually turning 53 next week. So I am beyond, unfortunately, my ability to have children. But I always expected and hoped to have children. And frankly, the silent majority of women who are childless are the same way in that they hope or expect or had expected to have children. And then, of course, there's a demographic of women who, and I completely champion this choice, are child-free by choice. In fact, half of women who are between the ages of 40 and 45 in America are child-free by choice. And then a smaller percentage are those who are childless by challenge. And so we have this growing demographic of women who are spending a greater part of their existence without children. And in fact, women who are aunts, I dub this demographic the PANK, or professional aunts, no kids. So these are women who are aunts by choice, or of course by relation, who the other mothers in a child's life. These women are there to help support not only the children in their life, but the families in their life. And they deserve to be recognized for all that they contribute to the family village. We talk about the family village, and it's time for us to welcome all women into the family village. Again, whether they are childless by choice, circumstance, or challenge.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The choice, circumstance, or challenge. And I would imagine that when you create a community like this, I mean, we've referenced your book, Savvy Auntie. We're also putting up on the screen your follow-up, Otherhood. Modern women finding a new kind of happiness. I would imagine you're receiving feedback from hundreds or thousands of people that have probably found some sort of a connection here that otherwise maybe didn't exist. And when you're talking about norms, or when you talk about sort of general themes through society, if you don't kind of fit into that norm, when you finally find a fit somewhere, it's big.
Yeah, in fact, so many women with Savvy Auntie had said, especially women who are have fertility challenges or other health challenges and are unable to have children, and women who are, again, childless by circumstance, said, being an aunt, I didn't even identify as an aunt. I just, of course, my sibling or my best friend, etc., had children. But you're right, it is an important role, and that really makes women feel like they are part of the family. It really helps strengthen that identity. But also women, when they read Otherhood, which is a reported memoir, it's my story of what I call the pain and grief of circumstantial infertility, something that is what's referred to as disenfranchised grief, the type of grief that isn't recognized, because people assume that only women who are married should desire children or should have the pain or grief from not having children. But of course, women who are struggling with fertility, but also those who are struggling to find somebody, to find love, who want not just to have a baby, but want to have a family. So those women also felt recognized. And if anything, there are very few things that are more powerful than no longer feeling alone. And so I feel not only very proud of that, but also a great responsibility to that cohort, so that they know that they are not alone.
No longer feeling alone. Well said. Marnie.
I would like to mention the patriarchy that in terms of International Women's Day and being flat or being childless, because I don't have children and that was a choice. And I feel, why are there laws against women's reproduction life? Like, there are only laws for women made by men. So, here we are in International Women's Day, and abortion rights and are being challenged everywhere. People are questioning whether you have children or don't have children. I mean, people just want to have a happy, healthy life, whether you're, and you want whatever relationship you choose to have, whether it be with cats, dogs, birds, being a parent, being an aunt, choosing to live in your body for who you want to be, and identifying the way that you want to identify. I mean, that's the real priority and the question here. I mean, to be told you have cancer and then to be told, hey, you need breasts to feel better about yourself because you're a woman. Like, really, they don't ask men like, oh, you have prostate cancer, so how do you feel about your testicles? Do anyone ask men about those things? when they have cancer? Or, hey, how were those erections? Or how are your erections going because you have prostate cancer? That's not something that's talked about, but certainly women's, how women are seen in the world is hot topic all the time. And it starts at an earlier age where women are sexualized, and it's important about how you look. And, you know, I have a friend that delivers for Canada Post, and some of the biggest deliveries are Sephora, because people can't get enough of making themselves look like something that they really aren't. And I really wish people would just embrace what life gives them and make the best of what they have, and not take any shit or listen to outside voices of people who have no business in your own life. Nor should we have to fight for our right to live the life that we want to live in our own way. And that sucks.
Christina, we were just showing a CBC feature on you. Dartmouth woman, topless and proud. Dartmouth woman embracing life after double mastectomy. When you're out there like topless and proud, do you find that? Does it put you in a position to have conversations with people? Like, is this something that do you consider yourself to be almost an activist or an ambassador? Or does it open the door for conversations with people that lead to really being able to sink your teeth into stuff like we're doing today?
Well, I'm a silver linings kind of person. So no matter what life throws at you, even in the turmoil of it, there will be a silver lining at the end of it. You just need to, navigate yourself through. And yes, walking on the beach and going to the Nordic spa regularly and not wearing a top. I have certainly had people come up to me and thank me for exposing myself to normalize cancer, to normalize body positivity. There was one instance this summer, I will say. I was on the beach in Prince Edward Island, and some woman thought I was transitioning or something, and seemed to be apparently upset that I was walking down the beach. And the friend that I was with corrected her and then said, "Oh no, she's a breast cancer survivor." And the woman had a complete about face, which is even more offensive. But I certainly, I honestly don't pay attention to. I wish more people wouldn't pay attention to what they think the world is thinking or observing or looking at them, because nobody really cares. I wish people could understand that people are so involved and engaged in their own life and their own daily endeavors. For the most part, whether what size or shape, what color, what religion you are, it really has no bearing on 99% of the rest of the world.
Marnie, you're nodding along with Christina as she's speaking. What's resonating with you in particular?
Oh, so many things. I think Christina and I have an interesting connection because we both approach our bodies in very similar ways, but from completely different perspectives. I don't even know how to connect with that because, when I think about all the things, I wish I could say, I can shut off the world. It's not going to bother me. Who I am, I don't have to worry about how people see me or view me. But the fact is, quite often my life and those of trans women around the world are at risk. Their lives are very much at risk when there's that assumption about who they are. And you just talked about that, Christina, right? So I don't have the privilege of being able to say, oh, the world I don't care what the world sees about me. I don't have that privilege because I go through every day of my life trying to fit into a world that wasn't built for me. And I keep thinking about, the best thing that we can do as women, the most important thing we can do as women is to be yourself in the world that's constantly trying to make you something else is your greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, and I believe that. And we have to find ways to do that because it is dangerous for many of us. And so, for a lot of the changes that I've gone through in my life to align my presentation in this social construct of gender has been for my own survival. So that when I'm out in the world and if I can't make decisions about myself, if, I work in healthcare, so this is where my head goes. I don't want people making decisions about me, my care, who I am based on how my body looks, right? But that's the reality. But for me, it's about my own personal feelings of how I see myself, how I think the world sees me, my place in it, and my safety in it.
Marnie, it was, I guess, about 7 years ago that you spoke at the Canadian Collaborative Mental Health Conference. You presented a keynote, "I'm not sick, I'm transgender." I would imagine the personal journey in putting that keynote together would have been a challenging and remarkable one, potentially an empowering one. Can you tell us about the process of putting that presentation together, delivering it? And then have you seen a more educated population in even the 7 years since you delivered that speech in 2015?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because, the circles I walk in, perhaps I do. I like to think that, we're progressing, and I'm seeing, the education and people have a great understanding. We saw comments go by about people coming out because they've listened to my talk. I think when I say I'm not sick, I'm transgender, it's because often in the world we see being trans as a mental health disorder, disease that has to be treated, a pathology that has to be cured. But the fact is, the one thing I am most mentally healthy about is the fact that I'm trans. That was like day 2 of therapy. The next 2 years of therapy was, how am I going to fit in a world that, get over the fear of losing my child, of losing my job, of losing my family? How will I get over the fear of walking out of a washroom and somebody says, and fear of being beat up because somebody says you don't belong there? How do I get over the fear of living in a society that would rather I not exist at all? The mental health concerns are about trying to live through that stigma. Being trans isn't a pathology that has to be cured. Intolerance, hatred is the disease that has to be treated. And that's the part that we have to focus on. As we sit here today in the United States right now, Christina talked about the legislation about policing women's bodies and reproductive rights. There are 270 pieces of legislation that are in the legislature right now, half of them going through, half of them are specifically targeting trans people. And the vast majority of those are specifically targeting trans children, these violent acts against these trans children in the United States. So is it getting better? Ask those trans children in Texas if it's getting better.
I appreciate that. And actually, Marnie, you tee up quite effectively here as we wrap, and thank the three of you for your time. I want to give each of you an opportunity to deliver to us a call to action, whether that's something to think on, to ruminate on today, to say, to do, to write, to convey, whatever it is, a call to action. Melanie, why don't we start with you?
Well, I end my book, Otherhood, which while a memoir becomes a little existential. And that is, if we believe we are the other to mother, then we are. And whether or not you want children, whether or not you're not sure, if you believe that you are the second sex within our own sex, then you are. And how we perceive ourselves is our duty to ourselves. So I hope that all women who feel that they are other to mother will hear themselves, or hear those voices rather in their heads, and decide whether they are the voice telling them that they are other, or the one believing it. And if they're the one believing it, then they have the choice to change how they perceive themselves.
Christina?
I think I'd like to just thank every woman that's come before me, and the men too, who have tried to advocate and create change in all aspects of equality. Oh, I have 4 cats, by the way.
We're very animal friendly show, Christina, so don't sweat it for 1 second.
In the world, it's difficult to advocate for yourself for many reasons. And if anyone can take baby steps, even going to a movie by yourself, or recognizing when you don't feel comfortable, documenting times that situations weren't right, and little things to either try to make your life better, make other people's lives better, and support causes that are true to your heart. And let's hope that Women's Day is just a regular day and not a day where we need to really remind people that we count, we care, and that we are equal on every level.
I appreciate
and that men don't rule the world.
Marnie?
I like men, by the way. I'm not getting it wrong. I'm just saying, like, the patriarchy, it just needs to dissipate and change.
I appreciate that. Marnie, last word to you, my friend.
It's a tough world that we find ourselves in right now. So my call to action to each of you is to check in with the people around you, check in with your friends, check in with the women and people of all genders in your lives. Be kind to each other, be kind to yourself. And probably the important thing, and I again, jumping off some of the things that Christina said, is that we are always one election away from removing many of the hard-fought rights that we've secured. They're tenuous at best. So I encourage everybody to get involved, know who your politicians are, know who is running in campaigns, support campaigns, run yourself, support campaigns who are about gender equality, who are about body autonomy and the health of women and the rights of all of us, because we don't get there until we all get there.
That's Marnie Panis, who is a member of the advisory committee that helped draft the apology that the Prime Minister, Trudeau, delivered to LGBTQ2S+ people in Canada in the House of Commons in November of 2017. You can learn more about Marnie in her TED Talk called Finding Courage, Conquering Fear. Melanie Notkin, as mentioned, the author of Savvy Auntie and Otherhood. You can find those online, those best-selling books. And, of course, it's been such a pleasure to check in as well with Christina Belding, a breast cancer survivor and one who's opted for and advocated since what's known as an aesthetic flat closure. I so appreciate. Who are we seeing there, by the way, for the benefit of those on YouTube? Who's the beautiful black cat waving at us right now?
He's Newman, and he is my new man. He replaced my a cat that passed away, so he is my sentinel. Always with me cat.
I love it. When he walks in the room, he always like, Newman. Is that
Newman?
Yeah, Newman. Hey, to the three of you, much love and thank you for doing this. Much respect. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great conversation. Whew. Love it. Lots to think about. And I know that we're seeing a lot of people kind of chiming in and sharing their own thoughts. I mean, Amber right now says, let's not forget in this discussion, women are more likely to live in poverty than men. How can we fix this? How can we make it so women don't continue to live in poverty? Another amazing point. I mean, we really could have, of course, approached today from a million different angles, which is good and discouraging. You can let us know your thoughts anytime to talk at ryanjesperson.com. We'll check back in with Sarah Hoyles in just a second. Of course, keeping an eye on other stories that are making news today. Before we do that, I want to remind you about the new Signature Stack Burger collection at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. They have just launched this month. They've reinvented their burger menu. Everybody's just buzzing over that flamethrower signature stacker. You can make these a single, a double, or even a triple. My personal recommendation, the Loaded Steakhouse signature stack burger. You got that unbelievable onion ring top, the bacon, the cheese. I mean, it's just absolute perfection. You make sure you ask for these signature stack burgers by name. The Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. That's Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. Also, a big shout out to our friends at Local Environmental. You know them, proudly presenting Trash Talk each and every Friday here on the show. Your chance to get whatever you need off your chest. You can send those emails in. And remember, next time you require, maybe for an event you're putting on, a festival, maybe a big community celebration, fencing, portable toilets, water hauling, residential, commercial, industrial waste and recycling collection and management, vacuum truck services. Keep it local in Alberta and Saskatchewan with Local Environmental at localenvironmental.ca. And while we're talking about family-owned businesses, the businesses that have earned the return customers and the referrals, which oftentimes means even more. If you're going to refer a business provider to a friend of yours, you're endorsing the work they're going to do, the experience, right? That's what Eden Landscaping is so proud of. You talk to Mike about that. You say, what are you most proud of? 20 years of family-owned and operating business. He goes, definitely the referrals. You can check out their portfolio and their services online at landscapeedmonton.ca, no matter what you need, whether it's excavating, maybe you're looking for a natural scape. People are doing a lot of those native plant type setups, reinventing what their gardens look like, the planter boxes, retaining walls. Now's a great day to get in touch and get your quote from landscapeedmonton.ca. Sarah Hoyles, working out of her home studio right now, and of course keeping an eye on news as it develops across the country, and perhaps in the worst kept secret in federal political news, at least these days, Jean Charest intends to throw his name into the ring officially for the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership coming up on, I guess, Thursday, right, Hoyles?
Oddly, I mean, he's not from Alberta, but he is doing this launch event in Alberta, in Calgary, at the Wild Rose Brewery.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You have to launch on the prairies. If you want to win the Conservative leadership, you got to launch on the prairies. I think that's just the way that it goes.
I mean, I think it's smart. His folks know what they're doing. I just, I wonder about if he kind of feels old school to me. He feels like from a conservative from the days of yore.
Right. Yeah, which is a fair assessment, I think. Former Liberal Premier of Quebec. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. I know that probably a lot of people are going to feel like he's not conservative enough for their liking, right? And this is going to come down. I thought it was interesting. National talk host Tasha Keratin had been rumored to be considering a run at the leadership. And a lot of people thought that she could really bring something unique and new. She could infuse some real life into the party. She's whip smart, very articulate. Obviously, I think a compelling speaker. I've had the opportunity to speak with her several times. She's decided that she will not enter the race, and she's endorsing Jean Charest, which is, I think, an important endorsement. I wonder if this comes down to Charest v. Poilievre, or if we're going to see some other prominent names in the mix here leading up to the, I guess, second week of September. We'll find out who's going to win this one.
Yeah, September 10th is when the vote will be taking place. I mean, not wanting to split the vote, wanting to make sure that the folks that, align with the idea of conservatism of Jean Charest versus Pierre Poilievre, not wanting to split those votes any more than that. I mean, when you look at who just got ousted, Aaron O'Toole, I feel like Jean Charest is very much in line with him. And the resounding message was that O'Toole was not conservative enough.
Yeah, that he kind of ran, and this is interesting that Mr. Charest launches in Calgary, which will of course be intended to send a message. You've got to win in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Keep in mind, we're not talking about the race for prime minister right now, although that's what the Poilievre camp is saying. Pierre Poilievre for prime minister. They're not talking about conservative leader. They say Pierre Poilievre for prime minister. But you're going to have to win on the prairies. And you're going to have to sell a lot of memberships, too. I talked to one strategist off the record who said that they're estimating that Mr. Charest's team is going to have to sell at least 200,000 memberships if he wants to have a shot at this, which is going to be really interesting to see. Of course, the as you alluded to, Sarah, the problem that Aaron O'Toole ran into is that he swung a little bit to the right as far as he was comfortable to win the leadership. But then when it came to trying to win a general election, you've got to campaign quite a bit differently, and that's where I think he lost a big part of the base, and then the Ottawa convoy thing happened, and then all hell broke loose, and then the next thing, it sort of strikes me as he's probably, you see somebody that gets T-boned in an intersection, and they're still like sitting in the driver's seat with their airbag just kind of slowly deflating, going, what just happened? That's got to be Aaron O'Toole's experience in the last month.
I'm sure. I mean, I bet if I were Aaron O'Toole, I would feel relief, like, I got out of there.
I don't know.
Because I got out of there.
I don't know. I feel like that would be, that's a real kick in the teeth for a politician. To lose your party, you lose an election, but you do, I guess, reasonably well. He was certainly punished by the party, I think, for not winning the election. But when you look at the direction they're going to go, I don't know. I don't know if I feel like this is a bold prediction or not, but I think the further you swing to the right, the less of a chance you have of winning an election, quite frankly. But for a lot of people, it'll be principle over political success too, right? They want the party to represent them. They don't necessarily care if they form government.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if Pierre Poilievre does take the leadership, there's going to be this gaping hole in the center, gaping. And who's going to fill that vacuum? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Is this something that you care about at all, Johnny? I mean, is it something you monitor or care about at all? Conservative leadership is on your radar?
I'm just watching and listening and learning.
Yeah.
But no, conservative leadership not on my radar right now.
Yeah. I'd be curious. I mean, this is for the party. You take a look at leadership races, and they'll say probably aside from getting a new leader, the biggest thing that they can do is generate interest and provide a fundraising opportunity, right, to sell party memberships. So
but that's the thing. I don't think there is any interest because all the people, all the party members up for it, they don't interest me.
Yeah.
They don't seem like good choices.
Is there something like, is there a political issue that you care about, or not a political issue, but an issue that would resonate with you if a politician or a political party said, we're going to focus on this, that would grab your attention or maybe even earn a membership purchase?
I'm on the same team as Hoyle's. Environment is pretty high up there for me.
Yeah.
And I think Alberta's, pretty good with that, but I think we can do more across the country and everywhere.
All right.
Who said I care about the environment?
Yeah,
Hoyle's is a big
Hoyle's is
electric car. Come on.
Well, like I said, electric luxury car. It's not. It has nothing to do with the planet, and has everything to do with being recognized in the parking lots. Right, Hoyle's?
Not even true at all.
She's at IKEA for 3 hours every day charging up.
Yeah. When is the free charging going to end? Because I don't understand.
Oh, it already has, my friend.
Oh, it already has. Okay,
has.
because I was going to say, right now, gas is... we should let people know, by the way, that our Friday Roundtable is going to touch on the skyrocketing price of fuel. I'm looking forward to this conversation. That'll be Friday live at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on the show. But, Sarah, people are... I think right now it's kind of the norm. I mean, it depends on where you're talking across the country, but the norm is $1.68, $1.70. We're seeing some people report... prices north of $2 a liter, and that's just for like regular unleaded 87 octane. We're not talking about premium that all the fancy folks have to put into their rigs. And then you look at these free charging stations. I'm like, I wonder if some people are going to fast track their EV plans. I wonder if there's going to be a big boom as fuel prices continue to rise.
Well, I would imagine so. I think also, we've been talking about it for months now, the idea that manufacturers are building more EVs, the idea of an EV pickup truck. So it's all in the works, and maybe this will fast track it. To me, I kind of hope so. Not just selfishly, so I can...
So you can sell yours at a profit? Yeah.
So there'll be infrastructure so I can charge. But I think... the dependence on oil and gas, it fuels tensions, like, look at what's happening in Russia.
Wait. Next, you're going to tell us you think that there have been wars fought over oil.
I know. It's going to be a huge shocker.
Wow.
It's going to come as a total surprise to you.
I feel a little weird joking about it, actually, to be honest. That's the real talk. I shouldn't be joking about it. Yeah.
But that's the reality that we're in. And so the idea that like Elon Musk, owner of Tesla, is saying up the production of oil right now, we need it. It's kind of like, but are we looking bigger picture? Are we looking at how this actually, no pun intended, fuels the problem?
Yeah. I feel like Elon's going a little more and more Howard Hughes every day. A little more like locking himself in the attic and growing out his toenails. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. I can't stand that guy.
I know, but you and I have got, because remember we got into our little, it wasn't a tiff. It was a friendly disagreement on whether or not, I can't remember what the word was. He an innovator or something? We hung up on a word. And I was like, he's an innovator. And you're like, he's an asshole. And I was like, that doesn't mean he's not an innovator. And then we kind of started going back and forth. But Johnny, you and I were talking about this yesterday. Is like,
I just think it's so sad because I think
we off the deep end.
We all kind of, we were all.
He was fascinating.
On his team.
He
we all liked him.
He is fascinating.
And then it just took a turn.
And then he started to really lose people. For me, it was when he was smoking the joint with... Another great question. People are going, why don't we call these American billionaires oligarchs? It wasn't in the British, like Bezos, Musk, Branson over in the UK. But like for Musk, it was at the time, remember he smoked the joint with Joe Rogan on the podcast in the studio, and everybody was like, oh, he's likable and he's just like us. And he's like, he's a little quirky. And how about this guy Joe Rogan and his podcast? And now they're both like cheering on the Ottawa occupation of the trucker convoy, and people are going, what the hell? The good news is if you need to unsubscribe from Rogan, you can tell all your friends that are doing it that they can subscribe to Real Talk, and we will continue to bring you these conversations each and every day. Also, great opportunities for you if you're fascinated by the field of AI artificial intelligence, and now's feeling like a pretty good time to maybe upgrade your skill set, prepare yourself for new opportunities in the job market, you have to check out the Artificial Intelligence Ethics Micro-Credential. This is offered through PowerEd at Athabasca University. You can learn more online at powered.athabascau.ca. This is a certificate you can register right now. Do it at your own pace. All right, so there's immediate access to course number 1. That's AI ethics and introduction, and then you make your way through the different courses. As time progresses, the next thing you know, you're certified. Hourly rates of AI experts in the job market right now are set at around $150 and can exceed that. I mean, we're talking about an amazing career opportunity here that could all start with your registration through PowerEd at Athabasca University at powered.athabascau.ca. We're talking about EVs, charging, setups at home, infrastructure elsewhere. You know who's obviously the experts on this? It's our friends at Kubi Renewable Energy. They've been providing solar energy solutions to power your life for closing in on a decade now. From the big, huge towers downtown to agricultural applications, garden sheds. People are using solar panels to find solutions that just a few years ago may have been cost prohibitive. That's not the reality anymore. If you check out their blog at kubienergy.ca, you'll be able to learn about the various incentives that are available at municipal, provincial, and federal levels to help you attain your sustainable energy goals. And when you do sign up at Kubi Energy, make sure you make 2 good decisions back to back and take your business over to Park Power at parkpower.ca. Those 2 businesses actually work together. So if and when your solar setup is generating more electricity than you need, Park Power takes that opportunity to put money back in your wallet. They've got other ways you can save as well by comparing rates, choosing their fixed rate options, and of course by bundling services, electricity, natural gas, and internet, you'll save on administrative costs. Make sure that you use the promo code 2022-RealTalk when you sign up at parkpower.ca. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we know that interest rates are going up. That's yet another reason why the cost of living for a lot of people is a real concern. We're going to talk to realtor Nazma Ali to get a sense of what that interest rate rise means for home buyers, home sellers, and the market in general. Plus, the author of How Minds Change, the surprising science of belief, opinion, and persuasion. We'll talk to science journalist David McRaney. That's coming up on tomorrow's edition of Real Talk. In the meantime, thanks so much for signing up, subscribing to our podcast, smashing like, and telling your friends all about it. We'll see you soon, Real Talkers. Make it a great day.